you.
A recent Politico poll conducted on the April 15th Tea Party in Washington, D.C. indicated that the free market movement in the United States is forming into two groups. The poll found that one group is more socially conservative, unifying under former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin, and the other is more socially tolerant, headed by Texas Congressman Ron Paul. This news comes in light of a scientific Rasmussen poll recently released that shows Congressman Paul in a statistical dead heat with President Obama in a hypothetical head-to-head matchup for President of the United States. Several news sources are speculating that the combination of a win by Senate hopeful Rand Paul in Kentucky, who is Congressman Ron Paul's son, could be the resurgence of the Barry Goldwater philosophy in the Republican Party of live and let live. An overt gesture of support towards this resurgence has been lent by Governor Palin with her endorsement of Rand Paul in the heated Kentucky Republican primary. In an interview about this phenomenon on MSNBC, Chris Matthews grilled Congressman Paul on whether or not he was indeed the leader of such a movement, to which Congressman Paul replied quietly that there was, quote, a revolution going on. Joining me now is the man who wrote the bestseller, The Revolution and End the Fed, the fierce defender of human freedom, Texas Congressman Ron Paul. Congressman Paul, always a pleasure. Welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be with you.
I guess the other side is afraid of the Tea Party movement because they think they can divide and conquer. We have stories of teachers telling students to infiltrate the Tea Party movement to disrupt it. And we have people claiming that it stands for two opposite things, that it's racist, that it's homophobic, that it should be disregarded. What's your experience with them?
Well, I think they've run out of ideas, so they have to divide us for different reasons. You know, if they wanted to combat us with better ideas, we should hear about them. But their ideas have been prevailing, you know, for a good many decades, and that's what the revolution is all about. We're challenging the status quo, and it's a grassroots effort, and that's what the Tea Party movement is all about. Sure, there's going to be different flavors. I mean, obviously, Governor Palin and I probably have some disagreements, but overall, we're not satisfied with the way things are going, and we represent a lot of people who are very disgusted and want to see something change. And hopefully we can put something very positive together, and maybe a victory here and there in the next election will encourage every one of us.
You and I have talked about this on air and privately, Congressman Paul, about the sudden passion that ordinary folks have for the Constitution and the sudden recognition that much of what Congress has been doing under Republican presidents and Democratic presidents as well is far outside the Constitution, far outside the powers given to the federal government. Why do you think people have suddenly recognized that and come to that understanding now?
I think it's because of the failure of government. You know, even if you're on the receiving end of the welfare system, I think people are worried about what they're going to get. And if you're on the paying end, you're pretty disgusted. But I think a lot of people are starting to recognize that the welfare state doesn't take care of poor people, it takes care of rich people when they saw these bailouts. And I think we've been introduced into Austrian economics, and we've learned more about the Federal Reserve. And all of a sudden they know, well, how did we get here? And I think very simply the explanation has been we don't follow the Constitution here in Washington. Young people especially are excited about this. You mean to say there are answers for this? Yeah, and they're not all that complicated. It's not like I've invented them or you've invented them. I mean, we go to traditions and common law and history, and all of a sudden the information is there. We're in great need of some changes. And these changes are offered up, and fortunately our Constitution offers a good many answers for us if we'd only follow it.
Before I let you go, what is the status of your legislation to audit the Federal Reserve? Are we likely to see that happen?
Well, you know, it's passed in the House. It's in a bill, which isn't a good bill, on regulations. And right now it depends on what happens over in the Senate. You know, they had their first vote yesterday and the filibuster wasn't stopped. They haven't brought their financial reform bill to the floor. Right now it's not in that bill. Dodd has something in that's much worse. But when that comes to the floor, which I'm sure that bill will, then it will be up to people like Bernie Sanders and Jim DeMint and others to try to put something in similar to ours. And I hear that our version that we passed over here in the House will be offered in the Senate. That is the key vote. Because if something is tremendously different, then it will be fought out in the committee, and who knows what will happen. So the key right now is on the floor of the Senate, what they do when they push out this financial services bill. If they never bring that bill up, then the whole thing is dead for the moment.
Well, we appreciate everything you're doing to get it through. Congressman Paul, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Judge.